In this episode of OG55, I am joined by Mr. Seymour Duck. We are talking all about the fandom and the grift and just everything involved in that. It's a controversial topic, it is, but we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about it, break it down up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. Like I said at the front, we are talking about the fandom, toxicity, and grifting, and all that stuff today. I'm breaking it down with Mr. Seymour Duck. The Italiano is still on vacation. He's going to be on vacation for a little while. But, Mr. Duck, it is always a pleasure and an honor having you on, sir. Thank you for joining.
Hello. And yeah, glad to be here and to talk about some spice because I was really hungry for some spicy food today.
Exactly. We're getting super spicy. Mr. Duck, if you could let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media.
Yeah, you can find me at X at Mr. Seymour Duck. And
There he is.
I'm trying to do Instagram, but it's not the friendliest place to talk about investing because it's all photos. But I'm trying to do Instagram as well. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's a tough platform. I've been trying to expand a little bit on Instagram as well and everything. And it's hard to even just share video links on there and stuff. So they make it kind of difficult for like what we like to do here on the channel and everything. But, I like to kind of dip into other platforms a little bit because X has been kind of going downhill, circling the drain, as they say, a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, here we go. Seymour, this tweet is making its rounds on X. Speaking of X, from Grayson at Minute Nerd News. He says here, that's right, folks. They sell you outrage and anger. This is what they do. They make mountains out of molehills to capitalize on an insignificant frustration their target demo might be feeling and heighten issue rather than tame it. Now, Seymour, we've talked about this a lot on the channel. This isn't the first time we kind of dove into this sort of subject, right? Where we see a lot of this, in multiple fandoms, right? It's not just like the Star Wars stuff or the MCU or the Disney parks. It's everywhere now, where there's a certain subset of content creators who will take little things, seemingly small things, and blow it up and sort of kind of get their fan base worked up over it, right? Because look, if you know anything about marketing, you want to tap into that emotional element, right? And look, to be fair, these people do that, and they do it very, very well. They tap into that emotional element. Hollywood is trying to brainwash you, and this, that, and the other. It taps into that, and it gets people worried and scared, and now they're mad. So they tap into that. But Seymour, what are your thoughts on Grayson's tweet overall?
I agree with it, and I'm tired of it. The first time I experienced this actually was a similar screenshot talking about how the Mario movie is woke and how Princess Peach wears pants. And I was trying to defend it online. I'm like, what is this? Princess Peach has always been a badass. And I was called a pixie duster for that. I'm like, I'm trying to defend Nintendo. And then I called them out again saying, Nintendo, the Super Mario Brothers movie is anti-woke. I'm like, you're the same person who said it was woke before. And I'm like, you're just trying to create drama now because it's doing better than Disney. And I'm just tired of it.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's exactly what it is. I remember the lead up, and we've talked about it before, the lead up to Barbie. A lot of these content creators were talking about how Barbie is literally the wokest thing that Hollywood's ever done. Or that was like the narrative out there. This is the most woke thing. This is crazy. And then the minute Barbie started making money, crickets. You didn't hear a thing about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they couldn't even say it was anti-woke because it was obviously not. But because it was successful, that the general audience didn't care for that culture war. And, you can't talk about it if it's actually successful, right? You can't say it's negative. So, yeah, with Barbie, the #1 movie of all time from Warner Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, though. See, when your whole narrative or your whole kind of point is go woke, go broke. That's like the nucleus, the center of this whole thing. When you say something is woke and then it doesn't go broke, in fact, it does quite the opposite and does what Barbie did at the box office, right? Or even Inside Out too. I think a lot of people were trying to even paint that as woke, kind of leading up to that movie, like. And then once that movie started making money, we didn't really hear anything about Inside Out anymore, right? It was like crickets out there,
Even I seen a similar screenshots of these for House of the Dragon when House of the Dragon came out, right? And they were calling that woke. It was diverse cast, all incest and all that, right? Before even watching the show, but then the numbers got really good. So then they saw Rings of Power from Amazon, right? Lord of the Rings spinoff. They
Right.
saw that and they say, "Oh, let's use House of the Dragon as anti woke." And use it against the Rings of Power. And then they did the same thing with the Acolyte. And it's but you just called the House of the Dragon woke, and then called it anti-woke. And then recently they saw a crack in there saying, "Oh, we can say it's woke again because there's two girls kissing." Oh,
Oh, jeez. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. There was something recently that happened too with the Acolyte and getting review bombed in relation to something else. If you want to go ahead and elaborate on that, Seymour, because you told me pre-show, I thought that was pretty fascinating.
oh yeah, the Acolyte, yeah, it was getting review bombed, and the YouTube numbers, right? Even the dislike was getting review bombed to the point where the same people with those screenshots were saying that you see, if you install the third-party extension to view the dislike numbers, it's woke, it's trash. Disney destroyed Star Wars, even though the top 10 movies all time with inflation adjusted has Disney Star Wars in it, but let's not talk about that.
Well, yeah, and then
Of all time, of inflation adjusted. That's if you think about that, right? You're like, okay, how can Disney Star Wars be that bad if it's top 10 of all time with inflation adjusted, with Gone with the Wind and the original Star Wars and Endgame? But okay, let's disregard that because apparently people didn't like that, even though it's top 10. But anyways, go back on track. Yeah, so you see, it had like millions of dislikes, and then now Mr. Beast is getting canceled, and the same people who said to not look at those numbers or the dislikes with a third party extension for YouTube, don't look at it for Mr. Beast because it's not right. The numbers are not accurate. So I'm like, what? What's with the There's no consistencies. It's all BS with them. They're like, oh, don't listen to the numbers when it's regarding Disney looking Disney bad. But then now when they want to defend Mr. Beast, oh yeah, don't look at it. 1.2 million dislikes for Mr. Beast video. No, it's fake. Those are not real numbers. So now why can't we use that and backtrack it for Disney?
Yeah, it's a double standard. There's like a lot of goalposts moving, and then the argument will be like, a lot of these people that do that have massive followings. They do. Look, credit where it's due. A lot of these people are really good at this kind of brand building. You know what I'm saying? And they've garnered massive followings, right? Very successful in this space. But their argument is like, well, we have so many subscribers or this, that, and the other, therefore we're legit, we're legitimate, and that isn't always necessarily the case. The National Enquirer sells a lot of magazines, you know what I'm saying? Or what is it, a magazine or a newspaper? I don't know what you would call National Enquirer, but at any rate, it's been very popular for decades and decades, National Enquirer, and it's all trash. It's the lizard people taking over Manhattan kind of bullshit, and it still sells a lot. You can have a big following on something. That doesn't necessarily mean what you're saying is legitimate or truthful, and that's one of the big issues I have in our fandom. It's not that people are negative. I don't care if you have a negative opinion on Disney.
Yeah.
Right. It's the misinformation, spreading that misinformation and crafting narratives that are BS, that aren't even true. And that's the kind of stuff that bothers me. Go ahead, Seymour.
And it's getting real toxic to the point where people who just like the shows, the movies, and they don't want, they just go on X or YouTube and they say good things about it because people can like things that you don't like as well. I don't like country music, but does that mean I have to go out and say I hate it? Heck, I don't I don't even like House of the Dragon, but I don't go out of my way and say the writing is trash. Don't watch this movie. They have incest. They have all these issues. It's woke. I don't go out of my way to say that. I just simply don't watch it. I simply don't care. But now people who actually like shows like The Acolyte or movies like Wish or they get targeted. They get targeted. They take screenshots of their profile, right? And they call them names, slurs. They call them a PDF file, like all these things. And it's disgusting simply because they like a movie or a show from Disney, even though on track record, Disney has been doing really well with Star Wars, really well with their Marvel movies and shows. But for some reason, if one does bad and they talk about how they like it, you have to go and target them. I find that really disgusting.
Well, it is disgusting, and and that's why I think a lot of people, and that's why it's not even like really like a true measurement online as to how popular a lot of the stuff is, because of that, you know, targeting and harassment basically for people that are saying anything positive about any kind of Disney owned entity. A lot of people shy away from even talking about it. A lot of people won't even say their opinion on a lot of Disney stuff. Like if you like The Acolyte, you might not even tweet about it because you don't want to deal with that whole, you know, smear campaign basically against you just because you happen to like a Star Wars show. So that's why when we go on X and we just see a bunch of people smearing The Acolyte, it's not really indicative of what's really out there. You know, because it's a lot of people are kind of in the shadows liking this stuff, too scared to even say they like it. Because if you like it, you're a pixie duster, you're a beta male, you like that. You know, it's like all these names and all this other stuff goes around, and it's terrible, man. It really is terrible, and that's what bothers me right now. It's like, again, it's like it's okay to not like something. You know what I'm saying? We have conversations here on the channel all the time, and we're not always positive. We're very critical about with Josh Giamaro and all kinds of stuff when it comes to Disney. Lucasfilm, I don't know how many times I've said for years now that Kathleen Kennedy needs to go. She should go. She should have been fired like yesterday. You know, we're critical. The issue isn't about being like, shilling for Disney or just loving everything Disney does. It's about just being honest. Look, if there's something negative going on at Disney, let's report on it and let's talk about it like adults. The thing that bothers me is when we're making shit up. You know what I'm saying? Like when we're saying that Tiana's is breaking down because they hired diverse Imagineers. Like that's the kind of stuff that is like just stupid. It's absolutely stupid, So I don't know, Seymour. It's frustrating. And you and I, we've been talking about this for a really long time. It's something that you and I are really passionate about. But let's dive into. I have a clip actually, and I wanna bring it to your attention. This is actually from. Now you're familiar with Scott Goosen, right?
Yes, I follow him on X.
Okay, he's a Disney parks guy, right? And I know you're not like super versed in the parks, but in this clip, it's about 3 or 4 minutes from the DBC pod, which by the way, I will be linking this video at the very end of this video. So make sure you watch their entire podcast. Their interview or discussion with Scott Goosen is seriously incredible. Support these guys, okay? They do fantastic work. But he dips into the fandom from the park's perspective, and it's not too different from what we're talking about today, which is Star Wars fandom and film fandom and what have you. So let's take a listen to what they're talking about. And Seymour, if there's any part in this that you want me to pause, let me know, and we'll kind of go from there.
And one more thing I just want to say. Shout out to Scott, though. Man, that guy has been grinding on X. I've been trying to post things about Disney, but I'm so busy with work. And this guy's consistently doing it on time as soon as the news breaks for Disney. And that's dedication.
100%. 100%. We love Scott. I try to use Scott's reporting as much as I can here on the channel because he's the best at it. He's very concise. He's very clean with the information. We joke around, George and I, we call him Scott Goatson, because he's the GOAT.
Yeah, he's the GOAT. Yeah. Even me, for a person who's like a normie for parks, I go to his Twitter for the information on it.
Oh yeah, he's great. He's great, and on top of doing his job really well, he's really a really nice guy too. So he's got it all. All right, here we go.
So then, how would you describe then? If we're going to keep on the it's going to be hard to be optimistic maybe with this next question. But how would you describe the last 2 years of Disney World fandom as a whole?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of soul searching amongst even the fans to people figuring out, do they really like this thing, and try being repeatedly told that this thing that they love is not what it used to be, blah blah blah.
Being repeatedly told this thing they love is not what it used to be. That sounds familiar, right? Even with
Yep.
Star Wars, this isn't the Star Wars we knew, and Disney parks now it's leaking into the Disney parks. Well, this isn't the Disney we knew. I'm at Disney all the time, and there are changes with like Lightning Lane and things like that. But for the most part, the experience, by and large, it's kind of the same, you guys. It hasn't changed that dramatically, but there's this narrative out there that it's just unrecognizable at this point. And it's like, oh, come on,
Yeah, even for even just for just any fandom, right? For me with Doctor Who, I like the new seasons, but then I get hate for it for liking the new seasons.
It's crazy
because it's not the same as the old ones, right? And I was like, okay, but I mean, it's my opinion and I like it. I don't know why you're targeting me for hating it.
I don't get that either, Seymour. What does you liking it? How does that impact anyone else's dislike for it? Unless the only reason why that would bother someone if it's not really about the show and it's more about getting their narrative out there. Because then you pose a threat to them because your narrative is it's a good show. So then it's an issue. But if it's really just about, hey, I'm a fan, I like it, you're a fan, you don't, what's the problem? But when you're pushing a narrative and you have to try to convince the masses this thing is woke, you shouldn't watch it, you're trying to campaign against something, well, then it matters. Then Seymour's opinion threatens the whole smear campaign. We got to take them down. That's kind of, I think that's kind of what's happening there with that.
It has been an interesting ride. The Reedy Creek stuff brought on a lot of extra eyeballs to the brand and to the thing. And now the thing, which is, the Disney parks experience, has been incentivized in coverage that skews negative in a lot of ways. So that's getting rewarded. And then people are...
So the Disney parks coverage that skews negative is being incentivized. That's exactly it. We see it all the time. This negative coverage, that's what gets the eyeballs. It's incentivized, but it's negative. It's not even half the time. It's not even like honest negative. It's just like mountain out of molehill stuff, just straight up out of context stuff. We talk about all the time with the context. It's like this mental gymnastics. Hey, if it's not negative, let's make it negative so we can sell this thing. What are your thoughts on that comment? Because I think that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm like, just see from the beginning of the video, I'm just all tired of it. I see a lot of people trying to do it for views and money, and they're even bragging about it on X. Like, oh, I see you all upset about Deadpool in the parks. I'm gonna incentivize from it.
Yeah,
even though it's actually you can get suspended for doing that engagement farming.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's
even
wild.
though Elon Musk says you can get suspended, but I think it depends on your political takes and what narrative you're doing, because because apparently he suspends people for one thing, right, on the left side, but not the right side. But that's a whole different thing.
Well, it's interesting with Elon because I keep hearing from people that, it's interesting, right? I keep hearing from people that, Bud Light is bad because they got political. Disney is bad because they got political. All these companies are bad because they got political, right? But Elon is out there. He runs Tesla. He runs X. He's way more political. Elon is way more political, openly political than Bob Iger or the CEO or whoever owns Budweiser. How come those same people don't go after Elon? Let's have a little consistency here. You can agree with Elon politically, right? But let's be honest here. If you're upset with Budweiser and Disney and this laundry list of companies that are woke and getting political, then let's call Elon out. I know he's more conservative, but let's be a little consistent, right? You can agree with the guy, but you can also acknowledge, hey, look, Elon, I agree with your politics, but I don't want you talking politics. Run your car company. Run your social media platform and get out of the politics. But nobody's willing to do that because, in my opinion, it's not about getting the politics out of these companies. It's about getting the lefty politics out, And if that's the goal, that's fine. Then just be honest about it and just say, hey, we just want progressive politics out and we want conservative politics in. And just be honest and say that. But a lot of times the narrative is we just want politics out. We just want it neutral. And we want things to be neutral in these companies. Not so much, because you're not saying a dang thing to Elon Musk, and he's out there every day, yada yada yada, with his political opinions.
And it's getting to the point where it's very toxic, and the advertisers don't want to be part of it either. That's why they pulled out. And then he made a whole speech about Bob Iger and trying to cancel him. But yeah, Bob Iger is being silent on it. He doesn't care. He just says, no, I don't want to be a part of it. Yeah, which a CEO should be, because you should be focusing on the company and not your political takes. Not like, oh, what I believe in. Because right now you have to focus on, generate revenue for the company. And right now, if people are upset on X, that's not going to be good for your advertisers for products that you're selling.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Bob Iger's, being the adult in the room, basically. Well, in my opinion, I think he's handled it, taking the high ground,
Same, but some people will be like, his silence speaks everything. And I'm like, no, I think, like you said, he's taking the high ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying that and interpreting it to mean that this is like a broad opinion of the parks, which is not the case. So
okay, this is interesting. I want to rewind just a little bit. He said a broad opinion about the parks, which is not the case. Let's listen to this for a second.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of soul searching amongst even the fans.
This is fascinating.
People figuring out, do they really like this thing, and being repeatedly told that this thing that they love is not what it used to be, blah blah blah. It has been an interesting ride. The Reedy Creek stuff brought on a lot of extra eyeballs to the brand and to the thing. And now the thing, which is, the Disney parks experience, has been incentivized in coverage that skews negative in a lot of ways. So that's getting rewarded, and then people are seeing that and interpreting it to mean that this is like a broad opinion of the parks, which is not the case. So
and that's a classic, this is classic sort of like in your bubble kind of thing, right? Where it's like you have these creators or whatever kind of pushing this narrative that Disney's bad, and sort of putting it out there full bore, loudly, and kind of giving this perception where it's like, oh, well, wow, I keep seeing it on social media. Man, people must really dislike the Disney brand, or people must really dislike Disney World, but it really is pardon the pun, but a small mouse casting a big shadow, so to speak, where it's like these people are very loud about it. It gives the impression that this is the overall consensus, like Scott Gooston's saying here, but it really isn't. You go to these parks and the normies are having a good time still. You know what I'm saying? It's just the optics, the perception is different online because there's I think a small percentage of people being very loud about it. And when you go online, like Twitter and things like that, it seems like it's bigger than it actually is. So I think Gooston's hit the nail on the head with that.
And it's not just the parks too, right? It can be Disney Plus shows, movies. People are saying, oh, a movie is a flop because they didn't do well in the movie theaters. And then they say, oh, it's woke, so that's why people don't want to watch it. But really, there's multiple reasons why. It's not just one thing. And people don't understand that. They just want something, like they're speaking out, like it's woke. No, it multiple things. It could be like they don't want to spend money in the movie theaters. It's too expensive for a family, so they just wait for Disney Plus. And then you see that on Disney Plus, #1 movie in the States on the Nielsen charts, and then or they think the movie is bad and they don't want to watch it, or they do watch it. Sometimes they do. And you see movies that do good, like Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. When movies are good, the people go out and watch it. They're willing to spend their money. You have to break that barrier. And it's the same thing with the parks.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well said. And real quick too, before I continue, the Disney brand in general, and last year they did have a hard time with their theatrical and stuff like that, right? And they did, and I think it was a content issue. It was people, the movies they released in theaters, people just weren't that interested in what it was, or they weren't interested enough to spend the money to go to the theater, right? Like with Wish and things like that. Okay, But then you have this year where, Deadpool's crushing it, going to be $1 billion movie easily. Inside Out 2 is already past $1 billion, right? So I kept hearing when these movies were sort of failing or underperforming, like, Little Mermaid, what have you, that it was more of an assessment on the brand in general. Disney took a beating, right? And families have given up on Disney. And that's why movie after movie is underperforming, right? It's this deep kind of seated sort of like thing where it's like, this is a brand issue, right? Beyond just the movies. Well, then you fast forward to this year, and you got Inside Out 2, 1 point, whatever it is, out the gate billion, right? Then you got Deadpool, which is going to be one point something billion as well. It's like, where is this brand pullback that we saw from the Disney brand supposedly? And if there was a brand pullback, it obviously wasn't that deep, because the minute a movie came out that people wanted to see, they ran to it in droves. I mean, it's crazy to me to think that like this was some sort of big brand hit for Disney last year, and it's so indicative of a huge problem for the Walt Disney Company. Then this year, families suddenly just forget. Oh, I guess we're okay with Disney again, right? And now we're flocking to the theaters for every Disney movie that gets released. It's nonsense. It was never the case. Go ahead, Seymour.
No, that's complete bullshit.
Yeah,
it's complete, because they are just cherry picking the data and picking an off year and picking only one sector of the company that represent only 15% of the revenue for the company. They didn't look at the Disney Plus numbers. They didn't look at the Hulu numbers. They didn't look at the cruise numbers. They didn't look at the parks numbers. They did not look at the sports numbers. None of those numbers that have been doing better year over year. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about how the parks now are generating more revenue than it did pre-COVID back in 2008 and 2019. But, the parks are dead. It's empty. Nobody goes to the park, but yet the numbers don't show that. No, the Disney Plus, it's a streaming service that can't compete. Yet it's profitable, and it's the second biggest, if you don't include YouTube, streaming service in the US. If you include Disney Plus and Hulu together, it represents 6% bigger than Amazon. And internationally, I'm sure that number is even bigger because they're combined.
Right.
But if you look at those numbers, how can you say it's there's a problem with brand damage? If brand damage is not all over the place and you're only looking at one sector, Disney Plus being profitable, it's not showing brand damage. It would not be profitable if there was brand damage.
Yeah, exactly.
And they exceeded their expectations, because they said it was not going to be profitable till the end of 2024 fiscal year, and they beat that by 1 quarter. So it's already being profitable. It's exceeding expectations. And then, they had one bad year, and now everyone's thinking that's how Disney is over all the years that Disney has done well. 1 year, yeah, Disney brand damage. That's it. No, if you actually look at the numbers everywhere else, they've been doing phenomenal.
Right, exactly. And that's what we talk about here on the channel a lot. It's okay to acknowledge, and we do so many times here on the channel, where it's okay to say, hey, look, Disney had a bad year. Look, Disney released movies that didn't resonate with audiences. That's all fair to say. But when you try to take something like that original tweet says, taking a mountain out of a molehill, right? Turning a molehill into a mountain, whatever. You're taking something which is pretty normal. A movie studio having an off year. It happens to every single movie studio that's ever existed. And you take that and you try to extrapolate that and sort of craft a bigger narrative around that. I think it's disingenuous. I really, really do. And we've been proven right here, Seymour, where it's like now Disney's fine. The movies are making $1 billion plus. Moana 2 is likely to do $1 billion as well, in November. Like, where is this brand? Where's the brand bruising that we heard was here for Disney? We were told that Disney, it's gonna take years for them to climb out of this mess. Okay. Well, all they had to do was release apparently Inside Out 2 and Deadpool, and apparently everything's all good now, right?
It's just a lot more thinking about something that didn't really require a whole lot of thinking before, which was just, Disney parks were fun, and, they were not without their problems, but I didn't have to have these crazy conversations that I feel like I'm having now. With
can you pause here?
Oh yeah.
There is something to be said about that. Because before 2018, I wouldn't have cared about any of this, looking at the details, looking at why a movie is doing well, look at the box office numbers. I was basically a normie on social media, and I would just go movie if I like it and go see it. I didn't even look at any of it. Like the best thing I would have gotten was word of mouth and said, "Hey, you should see this movie." I never looked at the parks, never looked at video games, never looked at like a thing so detailed as now into seeing should I go and see it. No, I just gone and seen it because I wanted to see it, you know.
Right.
Like, you know, I saw, with a lot of the Marvel movies, you know, I was like, you know, I'm a fan, I'll go see it. And I didn't look at reviews, I didn't go look at any of it. Now it's more like everyone has to do it tooth and nail to see, okay, do I need to spend money go and see it? Do I need to do this? I need to do that? Now me and social media, that's what I see everyone doing online now.
Yeah.
And before, you know, when I was a normie with social media and stuff, I didn't really care.
People have gotten pickier, Seymour. People have gotten pickier, especially with this movie theater experience. It's expensive to go to the theater, you know, especially with animated films. Because with an animated film, what people don't understand, with an animated film, it's not just you going to the theater. It's you, your husband or wife, your significant other, maybe 2 or 3 kids, you know, your whole family is going. That's expensive. That's expensive to do that. So when Disney makes a movie like Wish, where the general public was like, they were kind of lukewarm on it, not necessarily hated the idea of it or whatever. I don't think it was like this, you know, like, oh my gosh, worst thing ever kind of attitude, but it was like, it just wasn't enough to justify the theater tickets. Do I really want to spend $100 just to walk into that theater and watch this movie? Nah, we'll wait for Disney Plus. That's the thing now, is people are so particular where they're like, you know what? It has to be something that I really, really, really want to see. So Inside Out 2, Super Mario Brothers, those were movies that families were like, you know what? We're on board. We're willing to spend that money to go take our kids, you know? And it's just getting more picky. And that's why it's important when Iger says we're going to focus on quality over quantity. Okay. And that's why, because he understands that where families are getting pickier, and, you know, it's a harder sell now. You can't put out a mediocre movie anymore and make $1 billion. You got to really wow these audiences to get them in the theater now. You're competing with all the stuff on your phone, the streaming services, YouTube, all of it. You got to convince people now. It's harder, you know?
Yeah. Even for video games and everything else, like you're competing with a streaming service, and a lot of the movies that were released, you know, even in after 2020, they just call it like it should have been on streaming. I'm not wasting my money to watch it, and they rather wait. They rather wait on Netflix. Netflix kind of ruined it, but now everyone, you know, if it's like a B movie, if it's not high quality, they just don't bother anymore. Same with like video games. If the game is not high quality, like Nintendo, they won't bother. They just go play with their mobile apps. They play with their mobile games and play Candy Crush or Angry Birds.
Right? Exactly. Oh, I miss
or now they're playing Roblox, which is
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Have some super extreme views on something that probably shouldn't occupy as much of their day as it does. To be so negative on something, like just do something else. Like
Phil,
well, how many times have we said this, Seymour? How many times have we said if the Disney experience, whether it be in the theater or whether it be in the parks, is so terrible for you and your family or whatever, you don't like it, you don't like the direction they're going in, their content is terrible for you, their attractions are terrible, everything, that the lightning lane is terrible, everything is terrible about Disney, or not even everything, just enough of it is terrible that it's making you so mad, then stop going. Pull back. You know, I don't understand, like what Scott Guzman is saying, people that spend enormous amounts of time on something they no longer like. Like, I don't understand that. The Star Wars thing is the same thing. We hate Disney Star Wars. But then there's like 19 videos a week on it. It's like, why are we talking about Star Wars so much? I haven't even done that many videos on the Star Wars stuff lately. And I like Star Wars. And I actually like a lot of the Disney Star Wars stuff. The people that hate it are the ones making all this content about it. I don't understand that. Move away from things you don't like. I find that very odd, you know? What are your thoughts on that, brother?
Yeah, it's like I know some people might get upset about it, but it's just like the Lion King, the live action one, where it's like it made like $1.6 billion, but then a lot of the diehard Disney fans would say it's a trash movie. It's nothing better, but the general audience were willing to pay and see that movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I don't go out and say, "Hey, it's a trash movie, make it better," or go towards push the negativity towards users who do like that movie. Nah.
Yeah, no, look, I made no bones about it. I'm not a fan of the Minions, and it's, to be fair, not really my demo. I'm a little old for the Minions probably, and I don't have kids, so you know. But like, I don't like the Minions. But I'm not going to sit here and make a video on the Minions every day. Like, why? How much I hate the Minions? Let's do a video every day on how much I hate the Minions. Like, why would I do that?
I don't like the Minions either. I try to understand why it's doing well, and like it makes sense, but it's not my cup of tea. Even though it's the same studio making the Super Mario Brothers movie, it's not my cup of tea. But I'm not going to go against anyone who goes and sees it. If that's what you want to watch, then go watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I will say this though. I will say this: there is a Minions Cafe at Universal Studios Hollywood that has the best grilled cheese and tomato soup. It is chef's kiss, absolutely beautiful. I love that. That's the Minion stuff that I like to see.
I talk about this all the time. Is like, you know, we love spending time online talking about Disney, talking with other fans. It's something that we enjoy doing. It's something that you do quite often on Twitter all the time, and you know. Sometimes Phil and I have to take breaks from specifically the WDW Magic forums because there's such an intense mix of people that are just enjoy talking about the parks, and then there's a distinct crowd that always wants to look for the negative and point out the negative and everything else. And it frustrates me. And Phil.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like looking for the negative. It's one thing to notice the negative, right? It's one thing to be like, you know what, this thing didn't work for me, right? Like the Italiano is in Florida right now. And we've been talking back and forth on the phone periodically while he's out there with Slimer. And there are some things with the Disney experience he hasn't been happy about. But it's something that he's noticed. George doesn't go in there looking for negative. A lot of times it feels like people, and they're saying on these forums, which I'm not familiar with the forum, I'm not on that forum group at all, but in general with the fandom, even on X, I feel like it's not about noticing stuff that doesn't work. It's about finding stuff. Let's find something. And if we can't find it, then let's do the mental gymnastics to make it negative. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of stuff that I think he's talking about that frustrates so many people.
Yeah, it frustrates me too.
It's crazy, Seymour. It's absolutely crazy. It's okay to not like something that Disney does. You know, no one wants... Look, it would be boring if we got on this channel every single day and just fawned over everything Disney does. I don't want that. I don't want to do that. That's boring, you know? But to sit here and try to almost manufacture negative news or try to spin things in a way to hate on it or whatever, that's stupid. I just can't stand it.
I think Phil you just started posting again.
Yeah, we'll see how long it lasts. But
gone for like 6 months or so. Do you think that ever changes? Does that ever go away at this point, or is like the cat, out of the box?
This is interesting.
Where every single move is just under such intense scrutiny for a variety of reasons. Does that ever change?
I think it will. I mean, I think people will get bored with the shtick that some have taken and just kind of move on. The shtick. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, you can see through it. It's very much a shtick. And Gooson's right. 100% on that. Well said. Perfect word for that.
And
something else.
I just want to say something.
Sure.
And I see a lot of people who are normies, I guess I can say, like for social media, and they're usually quiet. But I'm noticing a lot of pushback lately from them against all this negativity because they're simply liking something that they don't like.
Wow, dude. Yeah. No, people are getting frustrated with it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They're getting real frustrated with it. You can't make a nice comment about anything Disney owns. You're automatically a pixie duster or a shill or a beta or whatever name they call you. And it's like, hey, I just liked, The Little Mermaid. I'm sorry. You know what? Oh, you're a pixie duster. It's like, well, maybe I just like the movie. I mean, it's crazy.
It's weird. I was called a pixie duster for liking Mario, so there's that.
That's
and Bob Iger special access and everything. But I'm like, I'm talking about Mario, but okay.
Yeah, it's all connected, bro. You know, Bob Iger's got deep connections inside Nintendo's operation. You know, it's all connected, bro. 4D chess.
We, as a fandom and the online world, just in general, with everything, we kind of get bored with things, and we move from thing to thing. And we like, when something's really good, we like to then switch on it and make sure that people, you know, it's not cool to like something, and then it's, you know,
Yep.
it's fun to dunk on whatever it is. So I think people will move on from it. I hope it's for.
So you
like
think it's a time thing rather than like Iger steps down, or there's something built in a park, or something happens distinctly where it's like an inflection point, I guess.
No, it'll just be time. Like, there's nothing like Disney could be opening Epic Universe right now, and it would still, I think, be dealing with a lot of the stuff that it's dealing with. Not all of it. Like, I feel like there's a lot of justified frustration.
Sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of justified frustration. We talked a lot about it in the parks division on this channel about, you know, Josh Giamaro with, you know, not pulling the trigger on projects, green lighting stuff, getting out there on the D23 Expo stage and kind of doing this whole blue sky thing. So there's a lot of stuff, like real stuff, to be frustrated with Disney. It's just when you make it up, or you're twisting it to make them look even worse, that's where we get into some issues. You know what I'm saying?
With parks, if it had Epic Universe, it would be far less justified. But there would still be some people that are making noise and wanting to stir it up. But no, I think it's just time. People will move on from it. And, you know, for what it's worth, I don't think the parks folks are as worried about it as we are, even though sometimes I feel like they should be. With all the stuff that
and I agree
from certain,
and not just with parks, but just like in fandom in general. I believe like with like just even the review bombing and stuff, I think they will just get over it and forget about it because it's not working, and they're gonna keep pushing it until it works, but it's not. You know, and they're gonna realize that, you know, people like what they like, and you can't change it. You know, I saw that with The Boys season 1 to 3. It was very successful, highly praised on the reviews, and then they got review bombed for season 4, and then a lot of the people, you know, who like the show will be like, well, have you actually seen the show? Season 4 is exactly like season 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
You're getting upset because it's something that you don't like, and now everyone else is trying to fall into that, you know, that their narrative and push it and say it's woke and all this. But then, you know, and then the numbers come out and said, oh, season 4 outpaces season 3. And, you know, and it gets to the point, it's like, well, your review bombing didn't work. People still like the show. People are watching it even more now than they did before. So I think they're going to get tired of it because it's not having any effect.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. And I hear from a lot of people, right? Like, you know, okay, you hear a lot of critiques from maybe conservatives or whatever about Trump derangement syndrome. You know, like Democrats have Trump derangement syndrome or whatever, right? You're just obsessed with Trump. You know, CNN is a perfect example of that, right? Where they report on Trump all day long, but in a negative light, right? Oh, they got Trump derangement syndrome. But then the same people, like, they'll kind of embrace content, right? That is basically Trump derangement syndrome, but just replace Trump with the word Disney. Okay, where basically they're doing the same thing to Disney that they claim they don't like CNN is doing to Trump, right? Like this whole like reporting on Disney nonstop in a negative light. Every angle is negative. Everything is made to look like Bob Iger and Disney are the mustache twirling, one-dimensional bad guys. Very similar to what, you know, CNN might do to Donald Trump, right? But when it happens to Trump, it's you know, you got like a mental illness, you got TDS, you got Trump derangement syndrome. But there's no self-awareness. They sound just like CNN talking about Trump when they talk about Disney and Bob Iger. When everything out of your mouth is Bob Iger this and Disney that and Big Mouth's bad, and you sound just like CNN. And there's no self-awareness with that at all. They don't see it. I don't get it. Go ahead, Seymour.
And Also, getting a little spicy here, but it's
Okay.
not just even Disney. Even if you just go outside Disney, a lot of them want their narratives to be true. And you see even this one woman who was in boxing, and she won. Nobody had an issue of her actually competing in the Olympics for boxing, right? Only until she won, and they say, "Oh, look at her jaw. She kind of looks like a man," and then put this whole narrative that she's trans, and completely not true. She was born a woman, still a woman, illegal to be trans in the country she was born in, country that she's currently living in, and yet everyone, including Elon Musk, including a lot of the uh, high political people, going in, even Logan Paul, someone who's high up in the social media platform, they're all spreading this just to create this narrative that is true, that we should not have trans people in Olympics, even though she was not. They're creating false narratives just to ensure that they're protected with their narrative. And I feel like that's what's happening with Disney as well. It's like they don't care about what the actual truth is at times. They just want to ensure that what they're saying is true.
Right.
Or the perception of it is true.
Right, exactly. The perception is true. And they were talking about the jaw. What's with the obsession with the jawline? I don't understand that.
I don't know either, but she never had an issue of boxing before, and simply because you look at one woman who works her ass off in boxing. Sometimes they look muscular because it's boxing, but then apparently because it's not a skinny white woman, she's trans, huh? Especially in a country where it's illegal. She's from a country where it's illegal to be trans, and even the government says she's not trans, she's a woman. And and everyone was spreading this false rumor without even back checking, just because they wanted it to be true.
Yeah, exactly. And there's very little of that. There's very little fact checking. It's all just kind of like throw shit on the wall kind of stuff, and that it's frustrating. It really is.
And it's so frustrating to the point where like Elon Musk will get community noted, or a lot of these big people get community noted, and then they get removed out of nowhere because they don't want to look bad.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the problem that I have with Elon, or just really anybody just owning Twitter. Like I'd rather almost have like a corporation own it. Like when you have one guy owning it, and he can just kind of like I think it's too much power in one person's hand. At least with a company or a corporation, you have a board of directors, you have like a little bit of a check and balance. With Elon, he just bought the company outright, right? It's not a publicly traded company, Twitter, anymore.
Yeah, it's not. And he even, he made a poll saying, "Oh, should I step down from CEO and get someone else to become CEO?" And got Linda from Comcast when she was doing the ads there. And she's now the CEO, but she doesn't talk. She doesn't speak. She doesn't say anything. It's all Elon pushing everything behind the scenes. And from what I'm hearing is that the advertisers are frustrated with her because she's supposed to be the CEO, but yet she can't do anything because the actual owner still controls it.
So basically what they accuse of Bob Iger being, where Bob Iger and his board, there's a bunch of like, yes people, right? Basically they just kind of do whatever Bob Iger wants. It's essentially what Elon has set up with this woman, where like she basically is like the what do they call that? Is it Manchurian candidate? Where it's like I think that's the terminology for it. I could be wrong on that, but it's like she's out there kind of pretending to be the CEO, but Elon is really
she's like the puppet.
Yeah, there you go, like the puppet, where it's like she's out there just for optics,
Yeah, she's not pulling the strings. It's Elon.
100%. Yeah, I forgot she's even involved. You never hear from her.
No. Then the last thing I heard is the advertisers are frustrated with her because they want content that is safe for their brands, and they can't get that. And Elon fired everyone that was in charge of that.
Crazy.
Outlets online that all of us see and immediately dismiss as nonsense.
Now this is funny. Hold on, let me go back just a little bit.
I don't think the parks folks are as worried about it as we are, even though sometimes I feel like they should be. With all the stuff that circulates from certain outlets online that
Goosen's very diplomatic about this stuff. Certain outlets online, you know what I'm saying? He's a gentleman. He really is.
That all of us see and immediately dismiss as nonsense, and then your friend of a friend or family member sees you at a barbecue and they're like, did someone suffocate on Tiana's Bayou Adventure? And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, where did you see that? And they tell you, and you're like, of course.
Yeah, and that's why we're gonna end it there, because Scott Gushton kind of summed up the whole thing, the whole video we made in that little piece right there, where he said, "Did someone suffocate on Tiana's Bayou Adventure?" Oh, okay, I get it now. You watched this, that, and the other, and that's why you think that, and that's what we're talking about. This whole thing, this whole time, Seymour, is that it's a lot of narrative building bullshit, and there's a lot of like untrue stuff. Like I said before, if Disney messes up, you call them out on it. You vote with your wallet. You get mad at real stuff. You get upset with the real things. A lot of it, though, is not real things. Like Scott's saying here, a lot of it is nonsense and rage bait and just silliness, basically. But what say you, Seymour, before we go?
Yeah. And in regards to the parks, I'm a normie. I'm a person who doesn't know a lot of the things that goes on with the parks. I'm more of a numbers guy and a media guy. But like, if I have to go and look at something, I'll go Google it or watch your videos and see what has to do with the parks. Or even Scott, right? Like, I read his tweets and understand more of the parks because I'm a normie. And a lot of the stuff I don't actually really care for, what the culture war that happens. And I feel like that's kind of the same way with a lot of the normies as well, regards to that, where they don't really care. And then if they do need to search something, they'll search it and unfortunately get some few articles. They're not telling the full truth, or they're cherry picking data in something. And, sometimes they're not the wiser and they believe that's the truth. You go to a grocery store, you look at the newsstand, and if you didn't realize the National Enquirer was not, 100% truth, you would think that's true.
Right. No, well said. And you're right, too. I think the normies they're not invested in this culture war. If they were invested in this culture war and they were that angry at Disney, well, Inside Out 2 wouldn't have made 1 point something billion already. If they were that upset, if the normies were that upset with Disney, then Deadpool and Wolverine wouldn't be making the money it's making. The parks wouldn't be making the money it's making. Like, this stuff wouldn't be, if the normies cared that much about the culture war, this stuff wouldn't be doing the numbers it's doing. And that's why I think I think these people that do have concerns, and it's fine if you have a belief system, a value system where a lot of stuff Disney's doing is running counter to your value system, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? And I respect that. You can do whatever you want to do with you and your family. That's everyone's personal decision. But apparently it doesn't seem to be the issue for most families, is what I'm saying. I feel most families don't really seem to care, because they jumped at the chance to see another Disney movie when it looked good to them.
Yeah, and, exactly. If the movie is good, they go see it. If the attractions are good, they go and see it as well. Yeah, they don't care if it's even though I know it might upset some people. I don't think they even know what Splash Mountain is. And this whole transformation to the other attraction. They say, if as long as it works and they go on it and it, they like it, and then they'll keep going.
Right. No, exactly. It's for the normies for Splash Mountain. It's the drop that a lot of normies care about, and the animatronics and the music along the way are kind of nice, but they're not as invested in like the storyline and this, that, and the other, and the history behind it and all that. Yeah, they're not like we are. Exactly. They're not like that, and they'll go on the Tiana ride and they'll get just as much out of that. They'll go on it for the drop, just like they went on Splash Mountain for the drop. And along the way, oh, there's the alligator from Princess and the Frog. Oh, look, there's Tiana. Oh, that's great. There's
Deadpool on a unicorn.
There's Deadpool on a unicorn. Yeah, exactly. And the normies are very superficial with this stuff. They're not as deep, you know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times the fans don't realize that. They're not into the lore like a lot of the nerds are, so interesting stuff. Mr. Seymour Duck, very spicy conversation today, but very, very interesting conversation. If you could remind everybody where they could find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, you can find me on X at Mr. Seymour Duck. You can see me talking about Japan stocks because they're dipping right now.
Yeah, I saw you tweeted that. That's interesting. That's very, very.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Yeah, when I tweeted that was like down 3.5%. Now it's down like 6%. Yeah, it's going down like crazy. Inflation happened, and now we're in the markets are thinking we're in a recession. Japan is increasing their interest rates, and the U.S. is not decreasing their interest rates quickly enough. So now people are like selling off because of it, and it's affecting everyone, not just Japan. But I mean, that's a good time to buy. But
yeah, that's true. That's true. Crazy stuff. But make sure you follow Mr. Seymour Duck on X. He's at Mr. Seymour Duck on X. Fantastic insight, not just on Disney and stuff like that, but he gets into a lot of Nintendo stuff and just financials in general. A great follow, a good friend here on the channel. So make sure you follow and support Mr. Seymour Duck. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG55. Comment down below with all your comments, opinions, questions, anything we talked about. This was a spicy conversation, and if you disagree with us, 100% fine. Just keep it civil in the comment section. That's all we ask. We like the disagreements. If you have a good case to be made, and you can kind of like maybe even change our minds, we'd love to see it. Give us the other perspective. We're open to it. But comment down below. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of OG55.
세상이 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.